Hello and greetings, everyone. Welcome to Interfaith Paths to Peace. My name is Judd Hendricks, and I want to welcome you to our 3 o'clock Wednesday program, which is called Community Conversations. We host a variety of conversations on interesting and challenging and important topics going on not only in Louisville, but around the world. And I'm really excited today to be hosting one of many conversations that we're hosting once a month on end-of-life conversations, and specifically under the leadership of Justin Magnuson and Paula Shanehoff, who are helping pull together some really fascinating conversations. You can join us next week for another end-of-life conversation on home funerals. We're going to be looking at really creative ways in which people are reclaiming how to create funerals in their homes. And a lot of beautiful movement that's going on in reclaiming that. And this is a program that's on ancestral healing. And you are in for a treat because we have really an amazing panel of those that are going to be sharing their wisdom and thoughts with us. So welcome to our program. If you're joining us on Facebook, you can put comments or questions in the chat box, and we'll have a moment to bring those in our conversation. So I want to welcome and turn it over to Justin. Justin, again, thanks for all the work that you're doing in Louisville and around the country and helping us rethink and reclaim the death and dying process. Thanks for being here, and appreciate you taking leadership on this. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Judd. I'm always appreciative to you and IPP and Paula for your just continual support of me and giving me both agency and kind of a permission. I've gotten to the point now where I don't really feel like I need permission to talk about death and dying, but the background of imposter syndrome is still there. So it's nice to be validated sometimes. So thank you so much for that. And thank you so much to my panelists, Miracle, Austin, Night Sky, and Chris. I couldn't do this without a lot of input here and a lot of just people willing to be vulnerable and step into this space. When I talk about death and dying, and I think about Before I Die Fest, most of the events that I host are things that I have some level of expertise in. And this is a space where I mean, like a lot of things I always hold a certain amount of not knowing or don't know mind. And this is one area where it's like, it's just, my mind's completely blank because I have no culture or tradition that has informed my thoughts on this and informed my relationship with what is behind me, because I realize that there is a lot of ancestry behind me. And I'm really just grateful to have everyone here. And I wish we were all in the same room. So I'm going to take a cue from my friend Harry Pickens and invite us just to imagine for a second that we all are in the same room and connected. And Miracle wave your sage around, Miracle, if it's still going, because I want to smell it. Yeah. So we invite that in. We invite that prayer in. We invite that connection in. And I think this is about connection, both to each other and to what has come before us. And I really don't have much more else in a way of introductions, but I'm going to ask each panelist to talk for a few minutes, 3 to 5 minutes, and just say what's on your heart and your connection to this work. And I'll call on you by name to get you started, and then we'll just open it up. So Miracle, do you want to get us started?
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Miracle Stewart. I'm based in Louisville. I'm a Black, non-binary artist, death care educator, and transition doula. I like to intentionally create spaces, hold space for Black, brown, queer, and other marginalized communities in death and grief. I host death cafes and more intimately work with people one-on-one for their end-of-life planning. I grew up in the South in Texas. I'm Black, more specifically Creole and Mexican, and I'm grateful for my ancestry, because the cultures I grew up in have a lot of ancestral reverence, working with the dead and dying. So I grew up Pentecostal, which derives a lot of its traditions from African traditional religions, which I didn't know about until after I came out of a traditional Judeo-Christian religion. I'm recently been getting into Ifa and other ATRs, trying to find a more nature-based spirituality that's based in love and expansion, instead of fear of eternal damnation, which is what I kind of grew up in. And so, yeah, so it's been a grounding experience, to kind of find my way and like stumble through this and have the time to do so with COVID. Everyone has lost someone this year. And I ended up losing my biological father earlier this year. And I put him on my altar, and it really helped with my processing of grief with him. So yeah, so even though COVID has been a lot, it definitely has gifted me time and space to explore, to fall down, to get back up, and to keep going in my journey of learning where I come from, and who walks with me. So, thank you.
Thanks. Austin, would you like to introduce yourself and just give us a little bit of background?
Sure. Thank you for sharing that, Miracle. That was touching for real. My name is Austin. I am a masculine of center and non-binary writer, editor, hoodoo and spiritual practitioner, and I'm also a tarot reader. My work explores healing the spiritual impacts of oppression and white supremacy, and also reducing communal harm, learning more about radical relationship and transformative justice work. I also work with the somatic experiences of trauma and trying to make liberation a lived reality. My heritage starts, or the false start of it is Southern baptism. I grew up in the church. All of my family are church folk. What I know now is a lot of their spirituality was actually rooted in hoodoo, which is an Afro-diasporic practice of spiritual herbalism. And so a lot of the things that I thought were tied to the church were actually tied to conjure work. And so I pull from that primarily, and I also pull from the fundamentals of Buddhism, and also started researching and learning more about Ifa as I spend more time exploring my ancestry. So I'm exploring African spiritual religions and learning more about the orishas that resonate with me, and learning more about my ancestors and reconnecting to ancestors that I didn't even know I had. So that's been a beautiful process. It's also been a lot of grief. In learning more about my ancestors, I've also learned more about the connections to my somatic pain and the pain that I experience and what it's related to. And so I've just been utilizing my relationship with the earth to work some of that out. And so the more spiritual I get, the more earth related it gets, the more grounded it becomes. So that's a little bit of my heritage and background.
Thank you. Night Sky?
Hi everyone. Thanks, Austin. That was so beautiful to hear everybody. My heartstrings. Okay. So, peace everyone. My name is Night Sky Mesli Yaot. I am Mexica, Chichimeca. I'm calling from Tongvaland in Southern California. I identify as Two-Spirit. My pronouns are he, they, and a lot of the work that I do around ceremony looks like I said stick and poke, so it's kind of like using blood and offering. I also use like massage / somatic releasing and conversating with people. So I do that kind of ceremony with other folks, more like one-on-one kind of basis. And then also for myself, I guess I just navigate the world in calling in teachers, working intuitively with them. I've been practicing learning from elders, Mexica traditions, and also am learning from Lakota people, or have learned from Lakota people in my work during Standing Rock. So I was also part of the Standing Rock resistance, part of the Two-Spirit Nation camp. And then also I have an elder and teacher, wonderful spirit being who teaches me in her wisdom of Ifa. Yeah, so that's what I do for ceremony work. And besides that, I'm also an artist, like to have fun, like to conversate with people, I like to get people free in all the ways that we can, you know, and yeah.
Thank you so much. And Chris.
Yeah, thank you, Night Sky, and Austin, and Miracle. My name is Chris Isgrig, and my blood ancestors are from Northern Europe, specifically Norway and France. The more recent ones being settler colonialists who from Minnesota and Ohio. So I was born in Ohio in the Ohio River Valley, and I still live in the Ohio River Valley here near the falls of the Ohio, on what is traditional Shawnee and Osage and probably many other nations traditionally, mainly because of the falls, I suppose. It's a big crossroads here. And I guess I see myself as a container builder and space holder, where I nurture and invite the emergent properties of healing and holding and creativity in the beings that are in those spaces. And so that shows up as in my role as father to my 6-year-old daughter, and my work as a psychotherapist, my role as gardener and community co-creator. I'm not sure how I can. There's not a direct linear way that I can kind of point out how I came to this work for myself. But I guess maybe I'd start by saying that I'm adopted originally, and so some of the searching around for my own blood family got me interested in this and has led me over many years to come to this work. And it became more explicit when I was introduced to Daniel Foer's work. And he's a teacher in Asheville, North Carolina right now, who is grounded in Ifa and some Mongolian practices, as well as Buddhism. And yeah, so I was interested in animism and ran across a video of his, and bought the book, did the program, worked with a practitioner, and mainly what I do now is very simple things. I do some just for myself. I don't really bring this into my psychotherapeutic practice, except as an invitation for people to explore it and to seek out teachers for themselves. But for myself, active imagination, intuition, that kind of thing is my own practice. Glad to be here.
So where do we start? What's the way in?
I can start the conversation with something that took me a second to realize. I'm learning, through the Judeo-Christian lens and relearning through a more nature-based spirituality, is that usually Black and brown cultures, spirituality, and like world and the like worldly possessions, or like how you walk through the world, are not different. Like spirituality and secular world are together, and it just kind of informs the way in which you walk through the world, which is something that I was not taught growing up in the church. I was taught that there's the secular world over here, and that your spiritual relationship with, divine being is over here, and they don't coincide. Like your religion can inform how you walk through the world, what choices you make, making good or bad choices, but they're two distinctly separate things. So it's been really liberating for me to learn that a lot of Black and brown cultures kind of mesh those together because they are two parts of a whole. Yeah. I don't know if anyone has any comments on that.
I want to piggyback off of that. In growing up as a Southern Baptist kid, I learned a lot of the same things about that binary. And so much of my gender exploration has informed or has on a, it was a microcosm of this understanding of the fact that these two worlds are merged. And not only are they merged, but have the ability to exist in both at the same time. And so a lot of my relationship to gender is very spiritual. And I just wanted to add that in there, what you just said.
Yeah, my name is Mary Lee. I'm a former Pentecostal and former Baptist, actually. And I would agree, Miracle, with what you said. Is when I was in the Pentecostal church, it was very much that there was the secular world and all of the things that you didn't want from the secular world, and then the spiritual world. I became Lutheran as I aged, and I found that created a different space for me, and it's not a traditional Black and brown religion, and so while it created some tension in my kind of my family life and my my reconciling my upbringing, it did create a more welcome space for me to realize that it is not one against the other, that I can have, that I can use what my beliefs are, my spiritual beliefs are, as something that does inform the way that I carry on every day. And it's interesting, in the journey that was losing my mother last year, I was reminded a lot of her Southern Baptist background. We had some things that were a little bit at odds. She felt very much like she needed to make sure that she had done enough to get to the good place, or the good side. And it's my strong belief that we are all created in God's image, and therefore we are the good side. You don't earn your way. into heaven, or into whatever you call that space, into the divine presence. You don't earn your way there. So that was part of the struggle that I had over the past year and a half of being a caretaker for my mom.
I'm going to say that, like, growing up Catholic in North America, Descartes did his job of separating spirit from material. And so as I've kind of transitioned to Zen Buddhism, I come from a North American tradition, but when you look at like early Zen writing in particular, particularly when it was still in China, and the overlap between Chinese Buddhism and Taoism were still very much married. Like, the teachings involve looking at the land and seeing like values, and I'm going to use the word gods for lack of a better term, but like really archetypes with the land. So like there's this relationship to the land. And so you don't see yourself as separate from the landscape. You're not in the Greek and the post-Cartesian world. Although I do think that our minds can do that. It's kind of a general theme. But I've heard you all mention Ifa, and I want to hear more about that, because is there more of a connection between, I don't know, somebody, either Night Sky or Austin, do you want to talk about Ifa and give me a sense of what that is? Because I have an idea, but I'm not sure. Does it kind of speak to that, bringing the two together?
I guess I'll go a little bit, Austin, and then you can piggyback, because I'm gonna go ahead and say I don't know everything, and that's okay with me, and it's okay. I think that's also part of the teachings that I've learned. Is that it's important for us to be humbled and grow, because we are, we're a mix of the physical, human, and also the divines, right? And so we're something sacred, and also something that is always evolving and changing. With the Ifa, from what I've been taught, definitely that there is sacredness in everything, especially the animal beings and the plant beings, that they hold so much medicine, and that they are here to help, that they are here to be part of a thriving and moving life and death cycle, like a healthy balance of everything, right? And so I know during the times when either it's a communal upheaval, I remember this is a very beautiful time, actually, when the police stations were getting burned down earlier this year. The responses that my teacher had, was like, save those ashes, because that was an intention, that was an emotion, that people were burning down those police stations for a reason, right? Because they were wanting that change, and they were wanting to end that brutality. They were wanting an awareness, they were wanting compassion, they were wanting a shift in our current state that we are. And so using those ashes and putting it into a ceremony, making it something beautiful, turning, kind of adding like an alchemy, right, to this scenario, and yeah, putting the prayers, using that special, amazing ash from such, because if we can see that protest and that time as a form of ceremony and ritual, because there was so much involved. Plus there was fire, plus there was water, there was earth, there was spirit, so much spirit. So yeah, so it's just an example as to how to connect daily thing to ceremony and to the greatness, to divine. And also, you can even count this as seeing how the death of something, right, like of that particular station, how the death of that is not so much like the end, but like a shift and a change, a continuum, towards something different. different than we want to see. If that makes sense.
Thank you, Night Sky, for starting that off. I'm also still learning, Aoife. My people, of course, were displaced for so long that it sort of feels like time travel right now, traveling across time and space. Aoife is a divination system. It's an earth-based divination system. It's a sacred technology, a sacred divination technology that is rooted in Africa, West Africa, if I'm not mistaken. Why I was drawn to it was because, as opposed to being involved with the church, where there is kind of one being that you you interact with, or two or three, depending on your perspective with Aoife. There are all these archetypes called orishas that are rooted in people that I believe really existed, and also continue to exist through nature, through the elements. And I appreciated that a lot more because it makes God tangible. It makes God something that I can go out and touch and interact with and grow and eat and all of the things. And all of the stories about the Orishas, about what they experienced, the mistakes that they made, they're very human stories. Like, a lot of them have made mistakes and got punished and, all over the place. And so it also makes it real. It makes God feel real. It also makes God feel like me. So I appreciate that connection, and also I'm able to hear my ancestors a little bit more through learning about Ifa and learning about its connection to hoodoo. Because if you look at hoodoo, which is root work and conjure in the South, a lot of it traces back almost directly to Ifa and if you can follow the path of the diaspora, the chaotic path of diaspora, you can also see the connections within Santeria and Candomblé and all of the other iterations of this divination system. And so I like it because it resonates in my cells a little bit more. And also it feels more like a practice and less like a religion, kind of like Buddhism. It feels more like a practice that you can include in your spiritual journey, but it's not necessarily the entire journey. So it feels like a little bit more malleable in the sense that I can apply it to now, as opposed to some of the archaic systems that we're still unfortunately under. And so that's kind of what I'm learning a little bit about Ifa. I'm still learning. I'm gonna always be a student of this. It's an entire intelligence that is alive, that changes, that responds, that talks back. Yeah, it's amazing. There are a couple of documentaries on Amazon Prime, I think, that talk a little bit more about it as well. But right now I'm reading a book called Ifa Will Mend Our Broken World, and it's been very, very, very helpful.
So I was going to ask the panelists or the audience, do you have a response to anything that's been said, or do you have questions or something you want to comment on?
Yeah, this is Joppa Buckner. The reason I sort of joined today is because at a very early age in my young adulthood, I ran across something related to this subject, which has to do with the Yoruba people of Africa's picture of time and ancestor worship. And it really speaks to this idea of how these polar worlds are unified, of the spiritual world and what we used to call the mundane world. In their picture of time, the past, which they call Zamani, where it's a place where if ancestors are forgotten, then they recede into Zamani. And then there's another place, which is a place where the gods dwell, which is called Suza. And it's like the future, the immediate future, the idealized future. And in remembering the ancestors and in bringing the ancestors authentically into everyday life, you bring the ancestors out of Zamani into the moment with you, and then you and the ancestors move into the future with the gods. And so that picture of how this activity that we do in the mundane world, this authentic living that we can do, which remembers the ancestors, can then bring them forward into our lives. And out of that interactivity, take us to sort of an ideal place where we may experience more of the divine presence. And so that has been a picture of time and mundane and spiritual life, which has stayed with me and been a big help through the ways I've related to my everyday life and my siblings and people who have passed before me, and how I can be with them again in a healing way. And so that's one picture that I think can be helpful.
I wanted to jump in. The way I've come into this appreciation of ancestral healing, inviting ancestors in, is through what's called constellation therapy, family constellation therapy, which is kind of a Western idea that came from Bert Hellinger, although Bert Hellinger got this understanding of how families are very present, family systems are very present from the Zulu tradition. He was a missionary in Africa, and he was actually more transformed by the Zulu people and tradition than, so when he came back from that, he brought these principles and practices about how the family system is always still present and how it transcends time and space, and so that there can be healing in a family constellation that actually heals the past. And the idea that Bert Hellinger brought from the Zulu tradition is that love and belonging are always wanting to flow through families. But there's reasons that love and belonging gets blocked from trauma, or someone is excluded from the family. And so there are these patterns that you can pick up on in the present that we're all living out of, the broken patterns often in our past, but those can be healed. And the ancestors are with us and present to bring healing. They still are actively engaged in our system to bring healing and belonging forward. And so that's kind of a little bit of a Western understanding of that, I know, but it feels like some of those principles are still apparent, and that's the system that I've understood and really appreciate.
Well, maybe it's a good idea to speak to the trauma that we've all been alluding to, because my understanding is that people, trans-culturally and trans-historically have had relationships with the dead, with their ancestors, and it's only in the last anywhere from 5,000 to 2,000 years, that under the dominant Western cultural paradigm, that we have lost those connections, and that the spread of that paradigm through colonialism has been the main disruptor of those relationships. And so for me, it is, there's the practice is about reclaiming my humanity, and owning my ancestral heritage for, you know, all the good parts and the bad parts, and just being willing to be with those aspects of things, and to be critical of I mean, it's, you know, I don't want to go off on one here because I'm prone to do that, but it's a, for me, it's a ontological revolution. You know, it's like Western society says this stuff is not real. You know, it just says, like, you're talking about metaphors and ideas, and for me, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about real people that lived 10,000 years ago, perhaps, or longer, that are alive and present today. I don't know. I feel like I've gone off on one there. I think I'll just stop at this point.
I'd like to add on, Western thought definitely does make spirituality seem like it's intangible, but that's like the cunning of it, right? So we say we don't really know about ancestral reverence, we don't really connect to our ancestors, but Western culture, Western society definitely does. Ancestor reverence that you may not know you have done is like our money. We have dead people on our money. We have parks named after dead people. We have statues of dead folks. They may not be our ancestors, but they were someone's ancestors. And so it's just like these small, underhanded ways in which we do practice ancestral reverence. It's just not to ours. And specifically for Black folks, like being robbed of knowing where our lineage lies, we, for the most part, have been revering other people's ancestors. So I just wanted to put that out there that, like, yeah, it may seem intangible, but we do these things already. Yeah, because money is a form of currency, it's a form of energy. And so every time we transact with it, we are finding ways to interact with someone else's ancestors. And one of the things that I love about Ifa and other African traditional religions is that it is very like individual based, like you work what works for you. So you find the rituals and the practices and the modalities that help you move through life and that make more sense to you and your innate being. And with that comes the ancestor reverence, because thousands of people came together in union to make you. So that's thousands of different minds, thousands of different paths of creativity, of skill, of intuition, of knowing that if you sit with them long enough, you can kind of tap into and find healing. And once you work with them, you can work to heal yourself physically, but also you can heal your lineage. And that's something that I usually implore my white friends to do when they think of ancestor reverence. They, they're like, ooh, no, my ancestors were colonizers. My ancestors, like did horrible things. But there's great power in working with them to help them learn of their mistakes and to heal their trauma, and thus like help you to navigate spaces a little more carefully, with a little more thought and care to those around you.
Can I add something to that too? Thank you, Miracle. Very true. Very, very good point on those, on the currency and the naming of the other people's ancestors for parks. That's a good one. I didn't think about that. Very good. True. And also, I just wanted to add that, to remember that, like, it may seem like when we say that, I don't know, I just have a little thing when we say the Western world, and like, just to know that folks are still practicing it is what I'm trying to say. That kind of practices are still around and they're still here, and we're not gone. you know, this indigenous folks of all beautiful earth tones are still practicing, you know, and still here and still very strong and still supporting the shifts that are necessary for moving forward. So whenever it feels like that you're alone in this, you know, or that you're looked at in a certain way or just judged, like just remember that you're not alone, you know, and that there's still folks that are here and are working and are probably being looked at weird or talked about weird, just like you might be. I'm in the city, you know, like I'm a city Indian, I'm a city native, and it's hard. It's hard out here practicing, living the red road out here. It's really hard. You know, if I go to work, it's like it feels like I have to hold a different self, but I can only be myself. So when I talk and I talk with spirits or ceremony, I'm gonna say it no matter where I am. And so, yeah, I feel like it might not click. You know, if I feel like y'all are feelers, you can feel when there's a syncing with or connection with other people, and sometimes it's pretty off. But that's okay, because I think the important part is, like Miracle said, we're a combination of so many people's energies and ideas and divine, that it's important for us to know who we are, and so that we can continue what we need to do, right? And everything else, you know, will just hopefully branch off and do whatever it is. But yeah, so I think that's just something I want to say, is that we're not alone, you know, in our practices. We're still here. And then also, I think I also just wanted to add about like the healing that can happen with our ancestors. I was writing this down last night, and so forgive my mumbling, but I think I just wanted to share that it's, I kind of see it as when our folks are gone, either recently or before, we are kind of left with like that residue of relation, right? So the memory is on our bodies, it's in our spirits, and it's up to us what we want to do with it, and how we can move forward in our ceremony with it. So it's either, you know, we can hold on to that residue, or we can let it go, or we can transform it and change it. It's like an opportunity, you know, ceremony is an opportunity to change things up, and use that fire medicine, which is like the great alchemy things, right? To change it up and put it to use, because we can't really destroy an energy, right? But we can change it. So that's just something that came to me last night that I wanted to share. But I can go on and on too, Chris. So I'm just gonna stop for now right there.
So I'm wondering if anybody else on Zoom or on Facebook has comments or questions. Judd, is anybody commenting on Facebook? And you're muted, Judd.
No specific questions. Lots of appreciation for things that have been said, but no questions specifically. Is anybody else on Zoom? Yeah.
Okay, so you know that I never shut up, Jen. Miracle, I was really taken with what you said about the reverence that we've kind of been forced into of other people's ancestors, right? We as Black and Brown people really, because there's so much unresolved, like we don't, it's almost like I feel like I don't have another way. What is your, like, what's your take on that? How do we find the connection to our own, how do we bring that into our consciousness instead of you know, having nothing, because I also don't feel like I really, yes, all of those people are on my money. They're in parks. They're all of these places, right? But I also know all of the problematic things about those people, from the history of what they have perpetrated on my family and our families, right? So I have felt myself in the past year or so, especially, wanting to make that remove, and that it just is coming naturally, right? The more that you learn about people that have subjugated your people, the less connected you want to be to those people, and the less connection that you feel. But it's like I don't have a replacement, because I don't have my own history, and I don't have a lot of that, a lot of those ties. And I have talked to other women of color, especially that are my friends, and we all have this kind of feeling, and it creates this weird amount of trauma. What's your idea for processing that, right? Does that question make sense, first of all?
Yeah, because I recently went through that myself. I would say the first step, honestly, would be, for me at least, not for everyone, but for me, the best step for myself was building an ancestor altar. And the idea then comes up, well, what if I don't know my ancestors? And that is very real. That does create roadblocks in ancestor reverence. I will say there are some resources out there. The library has some ancestry sites that you can use, which is what I've been using to search for my ancestors. I found out that I'm from Louisiana. My family is very much Creole, and there's a lot of magic in that DNA. And so I took time to research and find who I could. I can only honestly go back like maybe 4 to 5 generations if I'm lucky. Because there was a time period in which the United States kind of conflated all Black and brown people into being Black. So that definitely erased a lot of Native and Indigenous identities and cultures to just be conflated as, oh, you're Negro or you're white. So yeah, I only got back to about like 4 to 5 generations, but I put those names on my altar. And an ancestor altar can be very easy. A cup of water and candles is honestly all you need. And like the intention of wanting to reconnect with your lineage. And through that, I've found like an intuition and a knowing inside of me that I think we all have, but you know, like we are taught to repress and suppress and not really follow that gut instinct. But it's brought me to some magical information and more understanding of myself and where I come from. And honestly, patience. Once you start the journey of trying to learn where you come from, all you can do is patient and wait for the divine to unfold that to you. So I don't know if anyone else wants to jump in, Night Sky or Austin, but you're welcome to.
Yeah, I was gonna just go off of what you were saying, Miracle. I think a lot of us, especially Black and Indigenous people, especially like speaking specifically to Black people, experience a spiritual dissonance where you kind of know that something's missing, but you don't quite know what the missing thing is. And so a lot of that process, at least for me, was just letting myself honor the immense grief that is always going to be there. There's always going to be grief. And then but on top of that, like developing a relationship with the earth is developing a relationship with their ancestors. So spending time in nature, getting to know natural cycles, realizing that you are part of nature and that like this isn't a secular spiritual dichotomy. This is definitely just one globe. and these are the tools that we have to work with. But one of the things that helped me just kind of learn the history of Black folks in Kentucky is the notable Kentucky African Americans database. It is an entire archive full of newspapers, histories, family heritage. You can look up last names. You can look up who owned your family. They've been building this database at University of Kentucky for years now. And it's incredible. It's incredible. I've found so many things. You can find the history of pretty much anything related to Black folks in Kentucky and here. And you can just kind of type in different things. You can type in your last name and see if anything comes up. But that sort of started my journey, has been a part of me understanding my roots. Also, a lot of the things that we already do are connected to our ancestors. The food that we eat, the music we listen to, how we move our bodies, how we process grief, and the dreams that we have. Our dream world is definitely a part of the ancestral realm. And so I'm just thinking about how, basically feeling like a lost child perpetually, of learning to reconnect through food. And like I have an ancestor altar that's back there, but also every flat surface in my apartment is an altar everywhere. There's a little something everywhere that I kind of leave around because, there are a lot of us, there's a lot of my ancestors that want to be present. And I don't think they all want to share the same space, to be honest. I wouldn't want to share the space with thousands of people. So I have like little corner altars, little windowsill altars, just everywhere. And also paying attention to if I feel the urge to make some kind of food that I've never eaten before, never thought about eating before, that is a subtle inkling that somebody wants to eat this, but it might not be me. So making a lot of food that I probably won't eat, but I'll offer up to the animals outside, to the outside world after it's on my altar for a day or so. And also pouring libation, something that we all do, something that we've all done, is a way to connect to ancestors as well. But I think a lot of us are looking for a framework that replicates organized religion, and that may not be possible because the intentionality behind the erasure, it's not just that people think that it's made up. They know that it's not made up. They made it illegal for us to worship. So, and then they replaced it with dollar bills with, old white dudes on it and all of these other deities that don't belong to us and quite frankly, don't necessarily feel like a strong connection to me personally. But also a lot of those deities have an African pair to them or an indigenous pair to them of another deity that Black folk and indigenous folk were actually worshiping, but had to disguise it as Christianity or Catholicism. And so if you look deep enough into the gods that we've been made to serve, our older generations weren't necessarily serving those gods. They were serving their gods that were disguised as patron saints and disguised as all of these other more acceptable legal ways of worship. And so I think too, getting curious about, what's underneath the underneath is definitely something to explore, even with the tools that you already have. Like the Bible is also a spell book for a lot of people. There's a lot of spells in there that the ancestors were able to conjure protection from their masters, from white supremacy, in the Bible that they gave us to read. So there's so many little avenues to explore that are right in front of our faces. And I just keep asking questions because it only begets more questions, it only begets more questions, and so on and so forth. But that's the journey. So.
So I am aware of the time, and I just want to say that the light on your face is right on, Miracle. Like you have like this glow. There's something that you said, Austin, that I think we could have a cool workshop at some point of bringing together ideas and creating some kind of, rather than having a conversation, creating a ritual together. And I don't know how that would look over Zoom, but I would love to explore that at some point. So maybe there'll be a part 2. I don't know. Judd, I'm aware of the time. Do we have time for any closing comments or?
Yeah, we're okay on time-wise as long as those of you are. I would really love to hear what's been emerging for us, like connections in a few words, or like what do you, what's been inspiring, insightful, and maybe everybody on Zoom that's willing to share. I would love to hear kind of a harvest of what you've been feeling or thinking. We don't have a lot of time for that, but would love to hear, in a minute, what's emerging in your awareness, what wisdom is speaking to us right now. And everybody can go that as willing and open. That's a way we can begin to move to closure.
Well, I just want to say that I've noticed this longing that I've been feeling the whole time listening to everyone speak, and wanting to be in community with people who I don't even know how to articulate it, who are so deeply in touch with who they are and where they come from, and are willing to be vulnerable and take the chances to connect with others. And I wish that we could just keep on talking, because I really just want to keep listening, man. This is beautiful. Yeah, how do we do that? How do we keep on talking?
Speaking, another tradition that's influenced me from my African ancestry is the Dogon. And there's a book called Conversations with Ogamateli. And in this book, he describes how almost every aspect of their lives ritualizes their spiritual understanding, and how their ancestors are still present. And so I think one way to help, find, your ancestral connection is to really take the small aspects of your life and invent little rituals around them. And I think there's some revelation that can come through that. Because like if this book, Conversation with Ogamateli, every aspect of their life was authentic, because every aspect of their life referenced their ancestors and their spiritual realm. And living like that creates an authenticity that leads to, I think, revelation.
I don't want to take up a lot of space here, but Japa, what you just said resonated with me and reminds me that I have one small daily practice that I do, which is at dinner every night, we put out a small plate and we put some of the food from our own plates on it. And we offer that to our wise and elevated ancestors, and for them to join us at the meal. It's just, it doesn't take any time at all, but it really brings that home to me. And it feels really important to do that with my 6-year-old daughter, and to have her at least have some kind of inkling of what it means to be in touch with our ancestors and family. So it's, I mean, it's very small. It doesn't take anything at all. And then we feed the plate to the dog. The dog is the ancestor's stomach.
I love that. Oh, nice guy, you wanna go? I was just gonna say what's something that's resonating with me lately is learning that water is spirit and water is memory. And I've been working with just trying to form a relationship with water that isn't just consuming it and, you know, washing my body in it and then discarding it and not thinking about that. And so that's been really amazing. Last night I had a really spiritual experience in the shower. And then I had a dream where I was water. And it felt like I was doing drugs and I wasn't. Like I was literally a puddle in this, like in Australia. It was a whole moment, but which is another part of my lineage. But I was water and I was remembering and I had a conscience and I was like thinking. And when I woke up, it was just this, this is, an entity, this is a being. And so I've been thinking about that and just kind of like making sure that I express gratitude to water when I'm drinking it, when I'm using it, when I'm like watering my plants, making sure that I'm aware that the plant and the water are both living entities, and that like how do I honor both of those, and how do I make sure that the water content in my body stays like I stay hydrated, honoring the water because I'm mostly water. So that's been something that I've been able to kind of connect with spirit through, is just making sure that I'm grateful for the presence of water.
That's beautiful, for sure. It's such a great conversation. Thanks, Austin. I love hearing you. um, oh, sorry, I just wanted to share this Joppa real quick. I don't know if you can see that being that's back there. That's also from the Dogon people. It's inspired by them. It's what I call what we call the Nomo, but it's a being that's an androgynous being, right? So they have a beard and they also have breasts, and so they wanted to say hey because you mentioned them, but also just to put some I guess some more story on this is that this being actually like scared me because it's so alive. I was making a sculpture I was making this sculpture out of recycled material for a dance production, and this was all by other folks who identified as gender non-binary and wanted to do like a piece that wanted to honor their ancestors, and it was such an amazing piece. Oh my god! And they used two of these that I made, along with another sculpture. And one of the nights that I was working on these, like I got so scared, like as if a spirit had come out and jumped at me, and it's because there was a ceremony, there was a channeling that was happening because this is like sacred, this is something that isn't spoken of and it wants to be spoken of. Like it's like, use my energy, use me please, because we need this balance. And as part of Two Spirits, what we believe is that we're here not just in our queerness to be queer and amazing and happy and great, because we are, but also to create a balance, right? That we have a role. We actually have something to do, which is to help facilitate, to help ceremony, to help be warriors, to help wherever it is that a balance is needed. But that there's a role, right? That we have to do something with this medicine that we've been blessed with. So that, I think that's part of what I wanted to say earlier was that the ancestors, they want to connect, So for those of you who are like, hey, I don't know where to start, just know that they're like, hey, just call. I'm here. And then also for us to be open to all the ways that they show up, right? Whether it's through the plans, through other people, through strangers, through music, through feelings, through just like random thoughts, or like Austin said, I just want to make this food that I've never, why would I make this? Well, it's for a reason, right? So just trusting that and being open to all the ways that they want to connect with us, and you'll be on your way. You know, it's a process, not a product. It's a process, and to enjoy that path, to enjoy that road, and they're here with us. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
I am just thankful for all of you. And this has been a beautiful surprise for me. You know, I talked a little bit earlier about losing my mother, and I think I am, when we talk about, you know, what awareness is coming through, I feel like there was some guidance, right? That has been deep grief for me in this past year, and I'm feeling like this pull toward, when I saw Ancestral, I was like, what's that about? And now I get it. Like I'm understanding. I think why that pull was happening for me. I understand, and I think that she's part of it. And so I thank you for this discussion today. That has helped me realize that there's a path that I may be being led toward. So thank you.
What do you think, Judd and Miracle, to be continued?
I'm definitely open to having more conversation. It's a learning experience and a journey for sure.
Does anybody else want to check out that was on? Miracle, you and Justin want to have the final words?
Yeah, I just want to say I'm really grateful for Interfaith Paths to Peace and Justin for hearing this idea that I had and for making it happen, because this has been a journey very important to me over this year, and while dealing with loss and grief from the pandemic and natural death. Yeah, I'm extremely grateful, and obviously it was needed if people's ancestors are leading them to this discussion, then it's a discussion worth having for communal healing. So I'm very appreciative. Yeah, I'm just gonna try to be very intentional and present in every moment, realizing that you don't have to be practicing an African traditional religion to have your own rituals. Or you can, like you can practice Ifa and Christianity because African traditional religions aren't like you only practice this, nothing else. Like it's what works for you. So I hope everyone finds the rituals that work for them, finds and makes time to be intentional, to breathe, and to come closer to themselves and ultimately closer to the divinity within them.
Thank you all to all the panelists and everybody that's watching on Facebook and everybody that attended on Zoom. I would be remiss if I didn't say that you should check out Interfaith Paths to Peace and Before I Die Fast Facebook pages. We're going to be having a conversation next week on home funerals. Miracle and I will be back with another set of panelists on November Gosh, we're going to be back on for a racial inequity panel at the end of life. Sorry, I should have been more prepared. November 18th. So please stay tuned. And again, as always, thank you to Judd and IPP for being such great partners over the years, and to everybody else for being old friends, new friends, and hopefully friends to come.
Wonderful. Thank you all. Yeah, deep bow to everyone. I have lit a candle. This beautiful quilt behind me is a really beautiful symbol of all of the saints in the great cloud of witnesses that surround all of us. And now I'm transferring what I'm seeing as far as your faces behind me, right? Because we've all been with each other. And so we are a resource. We're a great cloud of witnesses for one another. And out of the beautiful different traditions that you're speaking from, deep bow to all of you and the paths and the people that got you here. I bow to and honor today. Thank you, and let's continue the conversation. Definitely seems like something that's very needed, and I feel like all of our ancestors are a little more happy at the end of this conversation because we've been together. So may that be so, and blessings to each of you, and thanks for the beautiful wisdom of our panelists. Yeah, thank you very much, and you're welcome to unmute and say your goodbyes to each other until we meet again.
Bye, y'all.
Bye, everyone.
Right,
Thank
thank
you so
you
much.
all. Thanks, Night Sky.
Thanks so much.
Austin,
Thank you.
Chris,
Thank
Miracle,
you.
thank you.
All right. Bye, guys.